Have you always felt like in your entire existence you have been placing other people's needs ahead of your own? Or do you feel like you're always prioritizing what someone else needs instead of prioritizing your own or yourself? In this video, I will let you do this and how sometimes you just end up doing it subconsciously even if you don't want to do it. I will also be covering some of the signs of people pleasing so that you can be aware the next time you're about to do it. Hi, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sheila. I'm your host, and I'm also a recovered people pleaser. Today, we're diving into the need to please other people and what it truly means. And when it comes to pleasing, there's usually the validation that we require from the other person that you're trying to please, or rather, there's that fear of rejection that comes. That's why we do what we do subconsciously. Psychologists define people pleasing as a behavioral pattern that is characterized by the desire to gain approval and to avoid conflict by meeting the perceived expectation of other people. And this is always often at the expense of your well-being, at the expense of your authenticity. So what it actually means in simple terms is that people pleasing is the opposite of being genuine. Because you're doing it to avoid conflict, you're doing it to gain the approval of others, you're doing it to just show people that you're putting their needs ahead of yours. What that leads to is that you end up feeling really bad, you end up feeling really disappointed in them because they didn't see that. But it's because they're just busy with their own lives. So I'm here to just show you how to prioritize yourself. People can be like, people could say, oh, what about kids? If when you have kids, they have to come ahead of you. When you have a family, they have to come ahead of you. I understand that. But you can never pour something out of an empty cup. And that's a very popular saying that people always say. You have to fill your cup first before you pour it to other people. You have to take care of yourself first before you take care of other people. Because when you're constantly prioritizing other people, taking care of their needs and neglecting your own needs, what ends up happening is you get depleted, you get a burnout. And when you get a burnout and you have no energy, you end up being unable to take care of the people that you love. So yes, I know that prioritizing others is a whole different ballgame when it comes to having a family. But I promise you, the best way to go about this is you have to always take care of yourself first. Take care of your energy, take care of you, because you come first. It's the same saying as, like loving someone. You have to love yourself first before you expect someone else to love you. Or you have to, love yourself first before you can love someone else. Being full, deep in your heart means a lot. It does everything. That's the key to it. That's the key to most of the things in life, and especially if you're a people pleaser. Because when you fill up your cup first, that's when you'll be able to, pour out to your children, pour out to the people you love. You'd be so full that you would not even feel a pinch when you're doing something for them, when you're dedicating your time for them, because you already dedicated time for you. Because you come first. People pleasers tend to always put other people's needs ahead of themselves. We've already said that. They tend to always prioritize other people ahead of themselves. They tend to, avoid conflict. So someone would end up saying yes to something just to avoid a conflict, or just to avoid rejection or abandonment. And I'll explain the whole rejection, abandonment issue, and also like the seeking approval, because most of us, when we grow up as children, we're growing up and the people we're looking up to, it's our parents, and we're looking up to them in terms of we want to gain their approval, so we'll always do everything. If mom says yes to that thing, then you did something good. And I'm not necessarily saying that was a bad thing, but that's the root. That's where it all comes from. And you just have to unlearn some of those things that you learned as a kid. Because over time, those same patterns of, looking up to someone to get the approval from them, be fearing that rejection or abandonment. It becomes deeply ingrained in us, and that's what leads to some of us becoming people pleasers. That's where it comes from. But I promise you, you can very much unlearn how to not become a people pleaser. I said something about saying yes to avoid conflict, or saying yes to gain approval and to avoid rejection. I want you to remember one thing. Anytime you're saying yes to something you do not want to do, when you're saying yes to someone you don't want to say yes to, or when you're saying say yes to absolutely something that should be a no, just know that you're saying no to yourself. And how does it feel when you're telling yourself no? In that moment when you're about to say yes, I want you to just count 1, 2, 3. Before saying yes, before jumping to say yes, just count 1, 2, 3. And when you count 1, 2, 3, you're like 1, 2, 3. Am I supposed to say yes, or is this a no? Like it's an actual no. When you take a pause, when you take some time to think about what you're about to say yes to, that gives you the chance to build up a little bit of confidence to say no. Because I 100% understand sometimes you don't have the confidence to say no. But when you just take a breather, even you can just breathe in and out, that right there just creates a little bit the confidence that you need to say no. The good news is all these patterns of people pleasing, all these patterns of always seeking validation and approval, the patterns of seeking, avoiding conflict and fear of rejection or abandonment, you can unlearn all these things. You can learn how to trust yourself. The first step that you need to do, you need to become aware that you're people pleasing, and by you watching this video is already the first step, because you're like, okay, something is wrong here. I need to understand what is going on. So that right there is changing. I need you to clap for yourself. I need you to be proud for yourself. Like, yes, I did the first step today, becoming aware. And the next thing that you need to do in the same concept of awareness is that the next time you're about to say yes to something that you do not need to say yes to, you remember this video. You remember me saying that all you need to do is just count 1, 2, 3, or just take a deep breath in and out and get that little confidence that you need to say no. And also, anytime you're about to do something that you shouldn't be doing, you'll be aware, you'll be like, why am I doing this? Or why am I about to do this thing? Do I want to do this thing? When you find yourself overcommitting to something that you should not be doing, you'll realize that that's people pleasing, and that's the first step. All falls under awareness. The second step is, I want you to connect with your heart. What do I mean by connect with your heart? So, as I was scrolling on Instagram one day, I found out a page. It's called HeartMath. And on one video, they said that you realize that when we refer to ourselves, when you want to talk about you point to your heart. Because in your heart, that's who you truly are. So when you connect with your heart, you find yourself. And that's why most people are always saying you have to just sit, place your left or right palm on your heart. And all you have to do is listen. Listen to it as you take deep breaths in and out. Because it calms you. It grounds you to just listen to yourself and to just connect with yourself. That's the second step. The third step is you need to be kind to yourself. The same way you go out there and be kind to other people, you need to reflect some of that kindness to yourself. Because you deserve to be kind to yourself. You deserve to be treated with love and respect, just as you treat other people out there. Be kind to yourself. Just when you're about to go into that rabbit hole of being negative to yourself, doing all those negative self-talk, those limiting beliefs that come, you have to be kind to yourself. And sometimes as people pleasers, We forget to be kind to ourselves, and that's why we end up overcommitting to projects that we do not need to be doing, or we end up prioritizing other people ahead of us. It could be your boss. But you have to be kind to yourself, because as you're doing that, you think you're being kind to them, but in the process, you're being very unkind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. And the last thing, I want you to self-evaluate. Anytime, and I don't think I've mentioned this, but one other thing that people pleasers do a lot is apologize even when they're not at fault. It's like, I'm so sorry. It was not you. You were not even, it's not even your fault. The thing that I want you to do is self-evaluate before apologizing. Take a pause. Think about it. You're like, am I at fault here? If you're at fault, go ahead and say sorry, because that's what you're supposed to do. But if you're not at fault, learn to not say sorry when you're not at fault. Because one thing about apologizing, even if you're not at fault, is trying to avoid conflict and disagreements, which is a sign of a people pleaser. So anytime you're about to apologize and you're like, oh, this is just me avoiding conflict, just evaluate what's going on, and just understand that you do not have to apologize if you're not at fault. Don't do it just because you just want to avoid conflict and run away. No, you deserve to be treated with respect. You deserve to be treated with love, and you don't need to do everything at your own expense. It's always healthy to take a step back, take some deep breaths, and think in every single thing. Before apologizing, you have to think, was this my fault? Before believing what your mind is telling you, you have to think and take a step back and be like, is this real? I want you to remember one thing. It's okay to say no. It's okay to prioritize you. Saying no does not mean you're a selfish person. It's an act of self-care. It's an act of empowerment. It's an act of taking care of yourself, being kind to you. Because as you remember, when you're saying yes to something that you absolutely do not need to be saying yes to, you're saying no to yourself. That's all for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you found this video helpful anyway, please subscribe and hit the thumbs up button below. And I hope to see you next week. Until next time, be kind to yourself. Bye.